The courtroom can be a place of intense emotions, where justice is served and lives are forever changed. But sometimes, that change isn't for the better. In this video, we'll explore the heart-wrenching stories of people who were wrongfully convicted and sentenced to years, if not decades, behind bars. Ryan Ferguson. He was a young man from Missouri who was convicted of the murder of Kent Heitholt, a sports editor for the Columbia Tribune in 2005. Despite a lack of physical evidence tying Ferguson to the crime, he was found guilty on the testimony of two witnesses who later recanted their statements, and he was sentenced to 40 years in prison. However, in 2011, one of the witnesses admitted that he had lied in his testimony, and another witness also recanted her statement. This evidence led to a new trial for Ferguson, which began in 2012. During the trial, it became clear that the prosecution had relied on coerced and false testimony, and the judge ultimately overturned Ferguson's conviction in November 2013. When the verdict was announced, Ferguson, who had maintained his innocence throughout the ordeal, broke down in tears and hugged his family members who were present in the courtroom. His case had garnered national attention, and his release was met with widespread relief and celebration. In a statement to the media, Ferguson expressed his gratitude to those who had supported him throughout the years, and his hope that his case would help to prevent wrongful convictions in the future. Amanda Knox. She was an American student who was studying abroad in Perugia, Italy in 2007 when her roommate, British student Meredith Kirscher, was found murdered in their apartment. Knox and her Italian boyfriend, Raffaele Solicito, were arrested and charged with murder. They were both found guilty in 2009 and sentenced to 26 and 25 years in prison. However, in 2011, an appeals court in Italy overturned their convictions and ordered their release after finding that the evidence against them was insufficient. When the verdict was announced, Knox burst into tears and hugged her lawyers in relief. Her case had garnered international attention, and the overturning of her conviction was seen as a major victory for her and her supporters. After her release, Knox returned to the United States, and the Italian Supreme Court later overturned her acquittal and ordered a retrial. However, in 2015, she was definitively acquitted by the Italian Supreme Court, bringing an end to the long legal saga. Knox has since written a book about her experience and has become an advocate for the wrongfully convicted. Deborah Milk. Deborah was a woman from Arizona who was convicted for the murder of her 4-year-old son in 1989. Despite maintaining her innocence throughout her trial, Milk was found guilty and sentenced to death. However, in 2013, a judge overturned her conviction, citing prosecutorial misconduct. The prosecution had relied heavily on the testimony of a detective who claimed that Milk had confessed to the murder, but it was later revealed that the detective had a history of misconduct and had not recorded the supposed confession. When the verdict was announced, Milk cried tears of joy and hugged her attorneys. After spending 22 years on death row, she was finally free. The case had drawn national attention, with many advocates arguing that Milk had been wrongfully convicted and that the prosecution had engaged in unethical practices to secure her conviction. Following her release, Milk sued the city of Phoenix and the detective who had testified against her. She was awarded a settlement of $3.1 million, which she said she would use to start a new life. The case also led to changes in Arizona's legal system, with new laws designed to prevent wrongful convictions and to protect the rights of the accused. Rodney Reed. He's a man from Texas who was convicted of the murder of Stacy Stites in 1996 and sentenced to death. Reed maintained his innocence throughout his trial, and there was a significant amount of controversy surrounding his conviction. Many advocates argued that the evidence against him was weak, and that there were multiple potential suspects who were not thoroughly investigated. In 2019, Reed's case gained renewed attention after a number of high-profile celebrities, including Kim Kardashian and Oprah Winfrey, came forward to call for a re-examination of the evidence. There were also allegations of prosecutorial misconduct, with some claiming that the prosecution had withheld evidence that could have exonerated Reed. As the scheduled execution date approached, Reed's attorneys filed a number of appeals, and in November 2019, a Texas judge granted him a stay of execution. This was a major victory for Reed and his supporters, who had been working tirelessly for years to bring attention to his case and to push for a new trial. However, the fight's not over, as Reed remains on death row as of 2023. Reed's case highlights the flaws and injustices in the criminal justice system, particularly when it comes to capital punishment. It also underscores the power of public advocacy and the importance of fighting for justice in cases where the stakes are highest. Bernard Noble. He's a man from Louisiana who was sentenced to 13 years in prison for drug possession in 2010. The case against him was based on the fact that he was found in possession of 2 small bags of marijuana, which, under Louisiana law, qualified as a felony offense. Despite the fact that Noble had no prior criminal record and was not accused of any violent offenses, he was sentenced to more than a decade behind bars. Noble's case drew widespread attention and criticism, with many arguing that his sentence was excessive and disproportionate to the crime he had committed. Advocates pointed out that the war on drugs had disproportionately impacted low-income communities and people of color, and that Noble was just one of the many who had been caught up in this system of mass incarceration. In 2018, after years of campaigning by Noble's supporters, Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards granted him clemency. This meant that Noble's sentence was commuted, and he was released from prison after serving more than 8 years behind bars. This decision was hailed as a victory for the criminal justice reform and a recognition of the need to address the injustices of the war on drugs. Noble's case has become a rallying cry for advocates and activists who are fighting to end the criminalization of drug use and to reduce the use of harsher sentences for nonviolent offenses. It has also highlighted the power of public pressure and advocacy in challenging unjust laws and policies. Jeffrey Deskovic. He is a man from New York who was wrongfully convicted of rape and murder in 1990 when he was just 16 years old. Despite maintaining his innocence throughout his trial and subsequent years in prison, Deskovic was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. He spent nearly half his life behind bars before DNA evidence finally proved his innocence in 2006. Deskovic's case was a tragic example of the failures of the criminal justice system. The evidence against him was largely circumstantial, and there were numerous inconsistencies and errors in the investigation and trial. Despite this, Deskovic was convicted and sentenced to a harsh prison sentence, which took a toll on him and his family for more than a decade. In 2006, after years of fighting to clear his name, Deskovic was finally exonerated when DNA evidence pointed to another suspect. He was released from prison and reunited with his family, but the damage had already been done. Deskovic's case was a sobering reminder of the injustices of wrongful convictions and the devastating consequences they can have on the lives of innocent people. Since his release, Deskovic has become an advocate for criminal justice reform and has worked tirelessly to help others who have been wrongfully convicted. He has also established a foundation to support these efforts and raise awareness about the need for greater accountability and fairness in the criminal justice system. Deskovic's case serves as a reminder of the importance of due process and the need for greater safeguards against wrongful convictions. It also highlights the resilience and determination of those who have been wronged by the system and their ongoing fight for justice and accountability. Brian Banks. He's a former high school football star who was falsely accused of rape in 2002 when he was just 17 years old. Despite maintaining his innocence, Banks was pressured into taking a plea deal and was sentenced to 6 years in prison. He served more than 5 years behind bars before his accuser finally recanted her story in 2012, admitting that she had lied about the rape. Banks' case is a tragic example of the failures of the criminal justice system and the devastating consequences of false accusations. The evidence against him was largely circumstantial, and there were numerous inconsistencies and errors in his investigation and trial. Despite his protestations of innocence, Banks was convicted and sentenced to a harsh prison sentence, which took a toll on him and his family for more than a decade. In 2012, Banks was finally exonerated when his accuser admitted to lying about the rape. His conviction was overturned and he was released from prison. The decision was a major victory for Banks and his supporters, who had long argued that he had been wrongfully convicted. Since his release, Banks has become an advocate for criminal justice reform and has worked tirelessly to help others who have been wrongfully accused. He has also used his experience to raise awareness about the need for greater accountability and fairness in the criminal justice system. Banks' case serves as a powerful reminder of the need for due process and the importance of protecting the rights of the accused. It also highlights the resilience and determination of those who have been wronged by the system and their ongoing fight for justice and accountability. Now, we want to hear from you. Have you or someone you know been wrongfully accused or convicted of a crime? How did you or they handle the situation? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and share this video to spread awareness about the importance of justice and accountability. Also, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content like this. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you in the next video.